Welcome to Project Insight. In today's video, I'm going to be overviewing the Table Input Grid custom field. The Table Input Grid custom field is essentially a spreadsheet wrapped in a custom field. Like a spreadsheet, it can be used to perform calculations on cells and can act as an easy way to attach information to a form without having to use an actual spreadsheet as an attachment. In this example, I've created a Table Input Grid custom field under the project request item. This custom field is used to estimate the amount spent on different parts of the project. All you have to do is enter your project budget, as well as the percent of the time you want to spend per task. So I'll say 50, 25, 5, 10, and 10. And as you can see, like a spreadsheet, all of these cells have been filled in through the use of formulas. To create a Table Input Grid custom field, you'll start on the Custom Fields Customization Administration page. Navigate to the item type that you'd like to make your field for. In this case, it'll be the project request item, and click Add Custom Field. However, in this case, I'll be showing you the Table Input Grid example I showed you before. To begin, give your field an applicable name, and for the input control, select Table Input Grid. Before getting into cell values, I'll go over the columns. The name column is the name of the cell and determines the text displayed on that cell. Column determines the column that the cell is in. The row determines the row number that the cell is in. An important note, row number 0 is the header row. So for example, on this grid, the top row in gray would be row 0. This first input type column determines the input type of the cell in regards to how the user will be inputting information. The options are text box, checkbox, date selector, text area control, and read-only text. The second input type column determines the data type of the value being inputted. The options for this are string, integer, decimal, date, currency, and percent. The class column allows a CSS class to be used to control how the cell displays. The style column allows you to enter inline CSS declarations. The onChange column defines the JavaScript method to run when the value in the cell changes. The default value determines the default value held in the cell. The cell class determines the CSS class to use on the cell itself rather than the information held within the cell. The cell style is the same, but with style rather than class. The cell call span column determines the amount of columns that the cell spans. Row class determines the CSS class to apply to the entire row. The row style is the same, but with style rather than class. And row mouse over determines the JavaScript method used when mousing over a row. Now navigating to our actual cells, as you can see, I've split my cells into columns and rows. Now as for the actual values, let's just choose percent of time spent per task. So the name of the cell and with what is displayed is percent of time spent per task. Its position on the grid is E1. Its first input type is a text box, so you'd be entering information into it. And the type of data that you'd be entering is a percentage. And the CSS style for it defines the text box as being 200 pixels wide and aligns the text to the right side of the text box. Now scrolling down on the page to below where you input your cells, the Auto Add Rows option allows rows to be automatically added as the table grows. Enable Hover Highlight on input and enable Hover Highlight on display enables a hover effect upon mouse over on a row. The only difference between these two options is one displays on the input form and one displays on the display form. These formulas work the same way that they would on an Excel spreadsheet. You simply enter the math that you want used on the cell. Specifically, for example, C1 equals E1 times C6 divided by 100. The reportable total column and row fields determine the column and row where a total will be reported. The column 0 value hides row field specifies the column where if the value is 0, the row will be hidden. For example, if I put column B into this field, if any values on column B are entered as 0, the row will be hidden from display. This has been a brief overview of the Table Input Grid custom field. For more information on this custom field and for custom fields in general, you can refer to our existing documentation and videos on the subject.